I'm trying a new format today, and hopefully this will be a successful way to talk to all my patients, friends, community at large, because I've been a doctor for 41 years, a naturopathic physician that's been building communities, and I realized that there's a format called podcasting that is very much amenable to all the different ideas and interests that I have. So what we're going to do is create this podcast called The New Earth, and it's going to be a platform for me to talk about things that are interesting to me and probably tell some anecdotes about patients and the experiences I've had so that you might participate either with seeing me as a doctor, calling my office, looking at the website, or I'm actually interested in talking to your groups and helping build our vision of what could be and will be in our future. So the title New Earth is about things beyond just medicine, beyond just health or the freedom from disease, and more about ideas. So hopefully I'll get some speakers with me and some colleagues and other people with um, incredible ideas that I'd be interested in hearing. But I'm also looking forward to getting in front of your groups. So I am a speaker. I put together a number of conventions and look to have more events where we bring together like-minded people. So as a doctor, I'm always open to listening to new scientific breakthroughs. You might or might not know that I'm a specialist in bioidentical hormones, testosterone, bioidentical estrogen, physiologic restoration method, love, thyroid, and all the glandular therapies. But as a scientist, we also like to work with the cutting edge lab tests and different ways to diagnose. So there's a lot of things that we like to look at when we're trying to analyze someone's health. But because I'm holistic and a naturopathic doctor, I always like to look at their environment and their community and stressors and things like sleep and things that aren't as sexy as rest. But we're going to get into that, including some of my pearls of wisdom, and those kind of come out as I think about them. But I mostly like to teach people with anecdotes and case histories because it's got a lot of them. So thousands of patients over the last 41 years with a lot of ups and downs and human suffering with also breakthrough miracles. And I've been around the block enough to know that although we all have a beautiful, rich life to live, that it can be made better by our choices of words and by who we associate with. So the the very exciting thing for me is sharing breakthroughs that I've had in my own life. And that usually comes up as people are talking to me about their transitions. So I always call myself a physician through transition. And it seems like people come to me when they're about ready to make a breakthrough. And it can happen over the phone too. I do telemedicine all over the country, and I have patients in Canada and Mexico and other places, but mostly I've been in the Southwest and now I'm in Bend, Oregon. So it's gorgeous in Bend. I'm an Oregonian from birth, but spent a lot of time in the Southwest. So we've had a lot of fun times creating naturopathic programs. I was involved with the Bastyr University, the Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine, and National College. They have different names now, but the main naturopathic medical programs I've been through, got my doctorate at Bastyr University, and went on to teach as an adjunct faculty in the other programs. I've had hundreds of students and thousands of patients. And so when it comes to chiming in on something new, like what's this supplement or how about this peptide procedure, I usually have an opinion on it, and I've usually tried it on myself. So if something works, I'm all for it. If something's really expensive, it might still be great, but it just limits who can get it. So we've had experiences in our different clinics with the top end of anti-aging and biohacking, including medical tourism to other countries like Ukraine and Russia, back before the Troubles, and they're about 50 years ahead of us with the regenerative medicine stuff. Russia and the Ukraine are very advanced in what they call stem cell research. And when I was in San Diego, most recently, I worked with Dr. Howe and his STEM Etica lab, where they actually were doing clinical trials with the FDA, cutting edge research with stem cells in the United States. And we did get to see what could happen and what couldn't happen with this amazing therapy. So stem cells are always on the back of my mind. And then there's subcategories of that sort of thing that people would call, the Cadillac of regenerative medicine. So anything that has life in it, like living cells, is pretty advanced and costs money. And if it comes from another human, also takes a lot of lab screening and sterility and procedures, and you got to make sure you know who you're dealing with. So there's some Wild West type aspects in the regenerative market. And the next level down from actual human tissue would be animal tissue. And there's a long history, thousands of years of humans eating glandulars from different animals that they've taken, harvested. And you can still get pretty concentrated forms of that. I mean, you might have heard about Rocky Mountain oysters, or the idea of the Basques biting the testicles off of a male lamb in the spring and getting a little bit of the testosterone from that. Kind of the ritual of actually castrating a young male lamb with your teeth as a crushing blow to the scrotum that actually heals quicker than cutting it off with a knife. So it sounds weird, but also there's some genius there as far as animal husbandry, is that the crushing separation with teeth is actually healing better than a knife. So the Basques get also a little bit of testosterone in their mouth. And we like glandular therapy. I'm a Chinese herbalist also, so I love everything Asian. I'm a Sinophile. I love the culture of Southeast Asia, the Indian continent, Ayurvedic medicine. We can talk about that. Love that total system. As a matter of fact, all cultures that have been around a while have wisdom in them. So when we study ancient medicine, we have to take it in the context of what they lived and what resources they had, but also there's some common threads. So I like the idea of studying indigenous tribes and indigenous cultures, because they really have tried everything and settled in on a certain diet, certain harmonies with the soil, certain foods that they work well with. And it's not all the same all across the world. There's a lot of resurgence in ideas like blue zones, where people live over 100 years pretty handily. And they're not all doing the same thing, but there are certain traits and similarities. So, judging all these reviews of different cultures, I like to weave that into my conversation, because when I'm talking to sports types or people who are on the internet and they're getting the latest influencer grapefruit drink or celery juice fast or something, I like to put it in context of what would a culture do and how long would that last if everybody was doing just celery juice or something like that. So the perspective of, yes, plants are wonderful. There are allies, there are medicines, but when you want to talk about healthy bodies, and I want my body to be healthy, and I want my patients and my friends and my family to be healthy, and I want the town to be healthy I live in, my community to be healthy, and I want the planet to be healthy. So what I want to do as a community builder is I want to talk not just about medicine, which I could go on for hours, but I also want to talk about what a community needs to be healthy. And I've lived in small towns, I've lived in big towns, I've lived in New York City, I've lived in a town with 5,000 people in it. And I thought I liked small towns. I think it turns out I like small towns that have a university in them, because there's a little more nightlife. But thing about small towns is there's usually a reason why people stay there. Sometimes there's a crossroads, or it's a meeting place, or there's usually a waterway or some sort of traditional trade that went through that spot. And it may or may not be a place of innovation. So just because some place is small doesn't mean it's bad. It also doesn't mean it's good. You can be in a boring small place that doesn't have any innovation. You can be in a place that doesn't have any services or even electricity. And one of the things that we talk about when we talk about healthy humans, we talk about a healthy culture and a healthy social environment. So isolation is not why we're alive. We're supposed to be meeting and greeting and touching and hugging. And my goal is to have people drop the barrier to being genuine with each other. And this is sort of the kind of thing that we can talk about over a cup of tea or something. But health isn't just taking the right herb or the right peptide or the right statin or whatever. It's more about waking up with the knowledge that you can change things with your will and with your actions. And has to be reminded every day by somebody that you like or somebody you read about or maybe by accident. I like that for myself and every day reinvent myself. So, as a naturopathic doctor, if I was going to talk to somebody, I would ask them about their joy, how happy they are. I ask them about their sleep also too, because that's sort of a quick review of how they're recharging. It's like saying, how full is your gas tank? Before we talk about where you want to go today. And when someone says, no, I'm not really sleeping, doc, I got a lot of stress, there's no point in throwing a bunch of things at them to do on top of what they're already too stressed to figure out in their life. And you can't reach in there and fix their stress for them, but you can give some reflection and some feedback about uh, what may or may not be serving them. If they have a goal, maybe it's lose 10 pounds, maybe it's not hurting their knee, maybe it's not have Alzheimer's like their mom did. I can tell them that something they're doing might be in the way of that goal. And it's up to them if they want to hear it that day or 6 months later or read it somewhere else or see it on a billboard or something. Because a lot of times we might be asking a question that we're not ready to hear the answer for. And one of the reasons I'm doing a different format of talking is I realize, oh, I say this sort of thing over and over again, and sometimes they hear it. And sometimes I might need to say the same thing and let 1,000 people hear it, and 100 people will really hear it, and then 10 people will act on it, and then 3 or 4 people, their lives will change. So the scalability of what we can do now in this modern life with the internet and with videos or with actually all forms of communication have just exploded. And unfortunately, that can include things that are confusing or distracting or just plain wrong or detrimental. And we have to get better at discerning things. It's a very challenging milieu of communication, media, and wavelengths and things that are coming at us. So if you wonder why you're tired at the end of the day, maybe it's because you've had 10,000 different choices that you had to make in a quick, brief moment. And that is one of the reasons why our cultures all over the world are getting more and more stressed. The people that are, again, getting back to indigenous cultures, the closer you are to natural cycles, like going to bed when it's dark and waking up when it's light and not being awake in the middle of the night, that's sort of an important chronobiology thing to work towards. People who have to do shift work, people have to like work in casinos or something, work at night. Gosh, I talked to a lady yesterday and she does Uber, so gig work, and it's a way to make some money and it's flexible and she's doing her own boss, but she works until 3 in the morning. And it's pretty hard to be a normal person if you're awake from, midnight till 3 in the morning and no one else is except for people who have to go to, I don't know, come home drunk from someplace. But it's a temporary job for somebody and it's a way to make a living and they can have some agency over themselves. But when I'm talking to somebody about their health and they have broken sleep, I just have to ask them, is there any way we can flip the switch and have you work during the daytime and sleep at night? If not, okay, there's ways to kind of mitigate that. But we want to bring people back in to the community of men and women where they touch people and they talk to people instead of just being sort of zombies roaming the streets at night. I talked to another man yesterday, 81, a very fit guy, but for whatever reason, he doesn't live with anybody. He has a social life, but he said, I don't ever run into women. So he's 81, and I talked to him about my latest passion, which is tango lessons and tango dancing, because it's a beautiful thing. We can talk about that all day long. But there's wonderful things with exercise that include reaching out and being vulnerable, not just working at a gym where you're kind of looking at somebody doing the same thing, but I'm talking about, in this case, dancing. Yoga can be kind of that way, or anything where there's a group of people doing Zumba, anything where people are in the same area, looking at each other and committing and kind of sweating it out a little bit. I like dancing because there's music involved, and we can go about dancing. But it turns out that they studied the brain, and the people who exercise create gray matter. They grow their brains. So if you want to grow your brain and not shrink your brain as you get older, exercise. And if you want to do it more than just exercise, you dance. So dancers make the most gray matter um, than any of the people they've studied. Probably because of the cross crawl, left, right, cerebellum stuff, where you have to constantly adjust your balance. But also, if there's another person involved, that's super sensitizing to your nervous system and subtle clues and stuff. So, loving that. And there's science is proving that dancing is good for you. So, let's do that. And you can do it when you're old. You can do it when you're stiff. You have replaced knees and stuff like that. So, don't get away from dancing just because you haven't done it ever in your life. So, we like exercise as a prescription, but not everybody has to go to a gym per se. We like sleep. I'm always going to be about asking people, how do you sleep? I'm going to ask people about little tricks to sleep. There's herbs, of course. There's hot and cold showers. There's little tricks like that. I like using a binaural beat machine. Mind Spa is the one I like, but you can also do things with herbs and things like melatonin and valerian. Good old-fashioned herbal medicine. One of the things we all have to do is less screen time, less scrolling, and just make your room a sanctuary for sleep. And they call that sleep hygiene. So you want to have a cool room, maybe even a window open, and your head cool, your body warm. And we don't necessarily want to go with a wet head to bed with an open window. However, if you have short hair like me, it's not that bad of a deal to have a little bit of a coolish moisture in your head, because that your head will heat up. So I often take a cold shower right before jumping in bed, and it's another hack of how to get snoozy. If you're tossing and turning, you jump out of bed, take a hot shower, cold rinse, get your head cold, and then jump back in bed. You probably fall asleep. That's one of the things we learned in our hydrotherapy classes that we taught the naturopathic medical students, is the shock of the cold when you bundle and swaddle yourself right afterwards allows you to get out of that mind that's chattering. So we talk about that high beta stimulated mind that's incoherent and has all the affairs of the day going like crazy, and you want to somehow snap out of that. So the last thing that is good for that sort of desire is looking at your phone or looking at TV or looking at anything that's electronic, and they call it blue screen. So ick for blue screen before bed. Put it down. Read a book is better than that by far. And what's even better is doing something that's kind of self-indulgence, like writing something or journaling or scribbling or something that is a wind down, but less about thinking about words. That's a lot of a stretch for most people. Some people, if they can just get a book by their bed and read like a couple of pages with the actual book as opposed to necessarily on their tablet or on their phone, that's better. If they can just go into a dark room that doesn't have a TV in it, and think of bed as a place to sleep and not as a place to do their email checks, that's healthy. Might take a little bit of agreement with, if you sleep with somebody, which side they want to do it on. If their light's on, you're not, sleep with a sleeping mask, but that's all negotiable. Another hack, a biohack, another life hack is getting a grounding pad, which is basically a way to lay on ionic conducting web of copper wire, and it goes off the bed and into a ground of the outlet, which goes down to the dirt in the ground. So you're basically like you're laying on the ground all night long. And that can take a lot of tightness out of your body and waking up stiff and that kind of thing. So it's called grounding. Goes back to walking around without shoes on. And they do have nice products that are very low tech in that they don't require power themselves, but they are made out of a grid of probably, I think, copper wire. It's a mesh, and then your body being bioelectric um, grounds and balances during the sleep, and you don't necessarily feel anything, but you wake up way better. So there's tricks like that, cool, keep your room cool, keep your room dark, don't have TV on where you have to look at it, even if it's flickering in the background. These white noise machines are kind of cool. So for some people that really have agitation and feel like they have to stimulate their mind to let it go, kind of like hypnosis, where your thinking mind has to be distracted for your subconscious to really come to the surface. And that's one of the benefits of sleep is the subconscious comes up and we get to work through some of these belief systems that are imprinted in our subconscious. Getting back to holistic medicine, we can take all the herbs we want, but if we're not doing our what they call shadow work, understanding guilt or fear or pain or rejection or things that we have to do in our mind. I have to do this, or I have to do that, or I'm only this, or I should be that. That is not fixable unless you take the thinking mind and put it sort of off to the side. And when people do hypnosis, what's really going on is they connect them to some sort of induction or some sort of story, and their mind's thinking about the story, and then the subconscious is actually available to make some changes in. So we like that kind of stuff. I love telling people to try hypnotherapy. I like people going into still points in their day. Meditation is the rock of my life, and you can call it whatever it is, but it's all about being still and breathing and not thinking in the future, not thinking in the past. That's hard for me. But if we can get a moment or two during the day like that, or 40 moments, or 40 moments twice a day, more better. And I like people who do that because they end up being able to look you in the eye and be quiet for a minute because they're used to being quiet for a second. So it's nice to be around a human that doesn't instantly react or think about something that they want to say while you're saying something. And it just breathe and be present with somebody is about the most healing thing you can do. Um, I was around a person the other day and she shared some very dramatic medical information with about her son, and I could have jumped in and started giving her ideas, but I just shut up and stood there with some compassion. I think that was the best sauce that I could have offered because her mind wasn't really in a place of taking more data in. She was just overwhelmed with the fear of losing her son. And the best thing I could have done as a human person is just to hold that space for her. So that's as I get older, that becomes more powerful in my mind that's the medicine. That's the medicine. Anybody can do that for anybody else. It's like praying for somebody, but it's even a little less formal. It's just being still with somebody, and honoring that what they're going through is their own work. And as a doctor, I actually have to sort of pull back from the idea that I have to fix somebody that's inbred in the drive that makes you want to be a healer or a doctor is you want to help, and sometimes you want to help by things that you've just heard about or thought about, and you can't wait to tell that person because it matches what they just asked. Hey, I just heard about that, and I got an answer for you, and yet they may not be ready to hear it, and the best thing they need is a hug or something. So that's the wisdom that comes with age as you start realizing, oh, it's not just about knowledge. So you can get all sorts of ideas, and AI helps us with that. You can have a whole long list of things to do, and here's a protocol. But sometimes, most of the time, people want it to be served up with some compassion and maybe in little pieces or leaked out little at a time. And sometimes the best way to get somebody to change is to have a relationship with them. And in medicine now, you don't have a relationship with your doctors over time. You just have kind of, well, who's your PCP? Who's your primary care doctor? Oh, I don't know. I see him once a year. And I always say, well, do you like that person? Do you have a good relationship with them? They go, I don't know. don't even know them. And that's a sadness because that's a loss of what an authority figure that's in our culture is allowed. We can really um, base some decisions and put some hopes on that relationship, that team member of a doctor has kind of been diluted now, and people don't even expect. I don't even like doctors. We hear that. I don't like doctors. They're just in it for the money, and it's sad because most of the doctors are really trying to do something correct, and they're trying to make money like everybody else because this is the system we're in. But it's a problem that the way the product of medicine has been co-opted is that people don't feel participatory in there. And this idea of having a relationship over time where the things that you suggest may fall on deaf ears the first 5 times, and then the sixth time, because there's a relationship and trust, they hear it from somebody like you. So I like having ongoing relation with patients. I like having patients that instead of trying to fix them one time with some amazing plant, herb, or peptide or IV or something, it's more like, well, let's work together. Let's figure this out. Let's call some other people in on this team. Well, you want some time to think about that? Okay, well, we'll circle back. You're in charge. You're in charge. And that ain't the way that it's set up now in Western medicine. There's a lot of things that are driven by fear, and I don't quite think that's a good way to have a relationship with somebody. But I'll tell you, um, the headlines for me now is that I'm going to start talking, and whoever wants to listen, you're welcome to it. And if we can have you contact me at www.proactivechoice.com, that's my website. There's phone numbers on there. There's happy people waiting to take your call. And as I had said before, if anybody wants to hear me talk as a speaker, I'm always available to travel and go stand in front of a crowd and point and click. I'm pretty good in front of a PowerPoint, but also I can listen to people's questions and pretty good about networking too. So I look forward to more adventures with new friends and old ones too. Be well until the next transmission. Bye bye.